Does Chinese leader Xi Jinping secretly want to destroy the Chinese Communist Party? It might not be as far-fetched as you think. Welcome to John Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. There has been yet another attack on Chinese leader Xi Jinping by his political rivals, former leader Jiang Zemin's faction. And the Jiang faction is terrified that Xi is going to take them and the Chinese Communist Party down for good. You know what that means. It's time for another episode of everyone's favorite communist soap opera, General Hostility. Previously on General Hostility. Xi Jinping is locked in a life-or-death struggle with former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin. Jiang and his faction ruled China with an iron fist. But Xi has been breaking their grip, and his victory may soon be at hand. A major Communist Party meeting could see Xi become leader for life. But will Jiang and his cronies stop Xi Jinping before it's too late for them? There is an all-out war within the Chinese Communist Party. Members of the Jiang faction tried to stage a coup against Xi. One of those guys is Bo Xilai. He was the one Jiang Zemin wanted to rule the Communist Party. But that didn't happen, and now Bo is in prison for life. Remember Bo Xilai, that name will come up again in a bit. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping has been amassing power. He's purged more than 4 million Communist Party officials under the guise of an anti-corruption campaign, many of them tied to Jiang. That obviously made Xi a lot of enemies. Well, a lot more enemies. And that has many wondering if Xi can really make himself the undisputed leader of the CCP, or if his enemies will take him out first. Enter this article on the Chinese Communist Party-sponsored overseas Chinese-language internet forum, 6park. It's all about how terrible Xi Jinping is. It even claims Xi might destroy the Chinese Communist Party itself. How did this get published on a Communist Party-backed website? I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. This article, titled An Objective Evaluation of Xi Jinping, is blowing people's minds. As you might have guessed, it's not objective. It's a 42,000 character long takedown of Xi Jinping, and it has the Jiang faction's fingerprints all over it. According to Sino Insider, a China political risk consultancy, Xi is depicted as repressive, regressive, and a potential renegade who will usher in the collapse of the CCP regime if allowed to remain in power. Yes, Xi may want to actually destroy the Chinese Communist Party. That may sound absurd, but I'll explain more in a bit. But the article is basically every negative thing you've heard about Xi. A tyrannical dictator, gross human rights abuser, power-hungry and dangerous. The article bends over backwards to criticize Xi, so much so that it starts to contradict itself. Xi is a strategic mastermind. But then, the article also describes him as a low-confidence, incompetent country bumpkin. Keep in mind, this is in a Communist Party-backed website. But if Xi is an idiot country bumpkin, the article describes Jiang Zemin as charismatic. Yeah, I think I know who was writing this. But it's not just Jiang that's great, according to the article. It also praises Bo Xilai. Remember him from earlier? He was a Jiang guy who tried to overthrow Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has talked a lot lately about what he calls common prosperity. Well, this article claims that's just a copy of Bo Xilai's 12 articles of common prosperity. Bo is depicted as capable, savvy, practical, accepting of Western society and openness, and having good rapport with intellectuals. Yep, here he is, Mr. Accepting of Western society and openness. Now, Bo Xilai actually used to be the Chinese regime's commerce minister. But there was a problem. Every time he traveled abroad, he was getting sued for crimes against humanity. That's because he was instrumental in murdering Falun Gong practitioners for their organs. Former Premier Wen Jiabao resisted Jiang's push to make Bo the next leader of the Communist Party because of all the bad international press he was getting for it. We know that from this leaked embassy cable. One successfully argued Bo's significant negative international exposure made him an inappropriate candidate to represent China at an even higher international level. So instead of getting a high-ranking position, Bo got shunted aside to be the party secretary of an unimportant city. If a genocidal regime is concerned you're committing too much genocide, that says something. But the objective evaluation of Xi Jinping article handles that. It says, if Jiang Zemin attracts Falun Gong's hatred, Xi courts resentment from all classes. In other words, some people may hate Jiang Zemin, but everybody hates Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping has hurt almost everyone in the party. He will eventually offend everyone. People will adopt an anti-Xi, not anti-CCP strategy, which is exactly what the Jiang faction wants. People to focus on Xi Jinping, not the Communist Party itself. The Communist Party has made many Western elites rich. They don't actually want to cut ties with it. But the Communist Party is so corrupt, so aggressive, and so genocidal that it's becoming harder and harder politically for Western companies and politicians to justify working with China. But if people can be convinced Xi Jinping is the problem, not the Communist Party itself, then we can just oust him and get back to business as usual. The Jiang faction is positioning itself as the savior of a China doomed under Xi Jinping. The article was written by The Ark and China. I'm getting some biblical vibes here. Ironic for the officially atheist Chinese Communist Party. Because as Sino Insider says, the Jiang faction is deeply concerned that Xi has been secretly laying the foundations all these years to disintegrate the party and throw them under the bus. Now that may sound crazy to you. Xi Jinping has been amassing power and strengthening his position as head of the Chinese Communist Party. But this article makes it clear the Jiang faction is worried that may just be a prelude to dismantling the party. It says Xi Jinping is eroding the CCP's ruling foundation layer by layer, precisely attacking all of the regime's vital organs, constantly dismantling this totalitarian government in an almost surgical manner, and has cut off the party's escape route. So what does it mean that Xi is attacking the regime's vital organs, cutting off the party's escape route? Well, remember, this was written by the Jiang faction. Jiang kept an iron grip on power through the 610 office, essentially Jiang's own personal Gestapo that answered only to him or his people. It was the driving force behind the genocide of Falun Gong practitioners. The 610 office is the vital organs of the Jiang faction, and Xi has spent years dismantling it, recently arresting one of its top leaders. This is what the article means by Xi cutting off their escape route. And that's why Sino Insider says Xi's continual accumulation of power and changes to the party system could actually be paving the way for him to blame the CCP's ills on the Jiang faction and dismantle the party. So by amassing personal power, Xi is actually making the party irrelevant. This article, clearly written by the Jiang faction, lays out the faction's greatest fear. Many people have been wondering from the beginning to the end whether Xi has some democratic intentions beneath his authoritarian appearance. The more people observe him, the more they think that it is he who is subverting the regime. Xi Jinping dismantling the party and turning China into a democracy? Now that would be the greatest twist ending of general hostility. But I won't hold my breath. and we could not do this show without your support. So, to thank the fans who contribute, I answer their questions at the end of some of my episodes. Today's question comes from Tea Drinker on our exclusive local social media platform. Chris, do you have a favorite rom-com film from Chinese cinema? Oh, that's an easy one, Tea Drinker. Shaolin Soccer. It's by the same guy who later made Kung Fu Hustle. It's got comedy, romance, and kung fu. It's about a washed-up soccer player teaming up with washed-up kung fu masters to utilize their unique skills to become the greatest soccer team around. I highly recommend it. Thanks for your question and your support, Tea Drinker. Thank you for watching. If you want to help us continue to expose the Chinese Communist Party, support China Uncensored on our social media platform on Locals. It's free to join, but if you become a paying supporter, you'll get access to exclusive content, including the chance of having me answer your question on the show. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.